Hello everybody, Anthony is here. In this time lapse, we'll talk over how I created this particular flying tram. I'll share my tips and tricks, so let's get started. So here I start with the people sitting in a row, and that's, you can see I've done a bunch of different people configurations. I have like 12 packs, 3 packs, 6 packs, 2 packs, different type of vehicles I'm planning to do. And I use human body for the ergonomics, and I build the vehicle around the human body. It makes life a lot easier. So here I use the blob tool to create this rectangular with rounded corners, and I'm using the transpose tool to move that stuff around. And then I'm just cutting through using what looks hard to create the inner shell. And now we'll be using some stencils to start and unhide stuff. I didn't really like that look, so I decided to go with a different stencil. First of all, created the planks, and now creating the the kind of ridges on the sides. And I'm building the roof now, so I want all some elements and then the roof on the top. Again, people sitting there can tell you the proportions and how tall it should be. Now I'm using the sphere tool to create the arched roof. So what I do here is I draw that bit, and then I will start to scale it inwards to create the surface essentially. So I start from just like a little line, and then I scale it using transpose tool and make it more and more long like that. And then I just use the cut tool to cut stuff and make it you know. So that's how we create the roof, really starting with the sphere tool and arched piece. So then I'm thinking about different railings around the vehicle. The railings are really easy to add. You think about, there's a lot of functionality to them, easy to hold on to. Maybe you need them to attach stuff to, maybe attach some load, or maybe you have to step on them to reach the roof. So that's railings are really easy functional stuff to add, functional detail to add to your vehicle, to your design, the functional design. And anyway, for me nowadays it's really easy to add detail. It's actually easier, harder to subtract. You just think about the use case of this tram, of this of your design. In this particular case, I was inspired by going to a museum. I went to a tram museum and I looked at those trams from the late 19th century, early 20th century, and a lot of stuff there was really kind of thick and built to last, like really big wooden panels, really thick iron. So I'm using that inspiration. And also on top of that, I'm thinking about modern materials like plastic, so the roof will be like plastic 100%. And combining that with some 20th century, so 20th century materials will be the plastic, and then I'm thinking about 21st century, the future. You have the kind of some flying engines, and that will be using also plastic, but some kind of really super powerful batteries that we don't really have today. But if we had some really powerful batteries, it wouldn't be a problem to create a flow, like a exhaust an engine that could power the flying vehicle like this. All right, so creating the supports for the side shields, the engine side shields. And I created these side shields kind of specifically to have less detailing, because I can also go on the engines and start add detail. But I wanted the engines to have the detail, but also be kind of covered a little bit, so then you can see a little bit of machinery coming through, but not too much. Again, it's like, for me, it's too easy to add too much detail, so I want to hold on and not to add too much. So I have to kind of restrain myself from doing that. So I'm doing the angulated supports. So when I have to do this supports under an angle, I have to use essentially around the camera and use the blob tool to create them under an angle. Not super comfortable, but you can also use a sphere tool to do that. But I prefer to use just one tool to do as much as possible. I don't like switching between the tools because it starts to use too much time. So here I'm essentially adding some, I think, fuel tanks for batteries, and then I'm doing the engines with a big blob brush. So right, so big radius creates just thick parts, and now I'm just trimming stuff around. So now I want to just quickly add detail into the engines. I'm using these just the same stencil I used for the planks. And at one point, actually, these crashed, so I had to redo the engines, and they will be looking different in the final variant. But it was the same idea. I was using the just striped pattern to create the exhaust. Here I'm using some stencils to throw some detailing on top, some damage and such, which I think I then lost, maybe. And I crashed because I was using blob tool with the wrong plane activated. It's a bit of a bug, it's been persistent, and 3D Code developers are trying to fix that. But still, every now and then, if you use a blob tool with the wrong plane, it will start to create a mesh which is like 100 million triangles, and it will freeze the ZBrush, and you have to essentially restart everything. And I lost, I don't know, 15 minutes of my work there. And this is where it happened, and I had to create some stuff and just carried on. You can see the engines are kind of actually new. So now I'm creating the steps to exit and enter the vehicle, the tram. So create the rails for them to hold on to get up. And then I'm just making steps. And I've split them and I'm duplicating them, so there's don't have to do that step, which is a bit too extreme. And I thought that the bottom step, we didn't really need the bottom step because the bottom is essentially the ground. There's no point. So I'll remove the bottom step later. And I'm thinking it's been done in this vehicle flying in a hot climate, so if you just have like open cabin, you only need like a sunshade against sun and rain. And now again, I'm thinking about usability. How do people get inside? And yeah, there could be a little step on the sides, so to put your foot in and just step up. That step turned out to be a bit too wide, and I made it like a bit narrow. Because if you look at the machinery where they use those kind of little steps everywhere, they use them, in trucks, tractors, in industrial machinery all over the place. Those steps are usually pretty small. They just like even sometimes only to put one foot in, because you don't really need to put 2 feet in to climb up. So I'll just put some signs right on the sides. And now I did more with cyberpunk stuff. I did more with radar equipment, antennas, GPS that will allow it to fly in the air and communicate with other vehicles. So there's like again a mix of 19th century materials of thick wood, some iron, 20th century, and now we're getting like some 21st electronics. 21st century electronics, LED lights, no bulky headlights, just really thin stripes of LED screens. And again, like lights on the sides. Then the front cabin with the pilots. And then the bumper there. I'm trying to figure out how it should look. and doing the bench for them to sit on. Again, really easy to build it around the sitting mannequins. All the ergonomics is already there. You just need to create them something to actually sit on. It's a bit tricky to because I'm using the right click to adjust the on plane tool to put the plane to draw with the blob. So sometimes I experience trouble just trying to get that on plane to right click and get uh, get that plane corrected well, placed well. So I do it and I undo it and click again, undo it, click again, and then hopefully I will find the right position of the plane. And now I'm going a bit more symmetrical, creating the steering mechanism, the steering wheel. And I didn't really like that front cabin was so symmetrical and didn't make too much sense. And also, if it's kind of a makeshift vehicle that was done half by hand, too much symmetry will make it look like a factory-made vehicle. But at the same time, it's definitely not something that was pre-designed and pre-manufactured. It's like just was done on the fly, one-off type thing. So each tram can look similar, but with slightly different configuration of stuff. Especially you can see in Asia, for example, in the Philippines, they'll have these jeepneys, vehicles that are all made by hand, essentially half made by hand, and each one has a separate decoration, separate instruments panel, all a little bit different all the time. Some will have like a tunnel railing around them, others will not. And actually, you can check in the description one of those photo packs for jeepneys I've done in Philippines. I went to a whole jeepney factory and looked how it was done, and it also builds your image gallery image understanding how it all works. So one thing I didn't like was the tram was so short it almost looked cartoony. So I really wanted to make it much longer, maybe like 50% longer. So here I'm hiding the people, just looking how it looks without the people first of all. And making the benches for the people. I didn't do too much inside. You can put like a radio inside, you can put a TV inside, charging ports, anything you want really. Anything you can think can be useful. Maybe extra handles, maybe some luggage holders or hooks, that stuff. Extra boxes. It could be like half cargo tram, half people tram. So the moment you start thinking about different usage cases, you can imagine different contraptions inside for maybe they transport pigeons and they have like cages for for pigeons. All right, so here I just decided to use the transpose tool and just move it across the whole thing and making it like much longer. Again, making it less of a square and more rectangular. I tend to do like the square designs. Everything becomes square. Too much of a square. Have to kind of fight against it. Have to re-evaluate it and fight against it. Which again is great thing about 3D code. You can do it. So here I skipped a couple steps that I made it longer and I fixed some things here and there. So now it can fit probably like 20 people really. No longer 12 packs, but more like 18 packs. Because now I'm using the sphere tool to draw stuff around. Sphere tool really snaps super well to the surface. Sometimes it can pose a problem because it can jump to the further corner. I have to be a little bit careful when I paint with this. Sometimes we'll activate the on plane tool if I want to paint in the air. So we go on plane, paint there. And if I paint in the wrong position, I will right click on a particular part and go and paint with the cable again. You can see here I turned off the symmetry, so obviously I don't want to have those chaotic cables symmetrical, because it would make no sense. Impossible to do in real life. Just doing some cleanups and create an extra support at the bottom. In the end, I think the bottom started to look even more interesting than the top. The extra structures at the bottom, the supports, thinking like wooden materials or metal. And here I've just played around with the idea. It's been covered front cabin, which could be as well. Could be a front, but everything else is not. And that's really about it. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.